So welcome to all the familiar faces. Welcome to the new faces. I want you to relax for the next hour and see this as a session for yourself. Enjoy it. Just listen. If you've got any questions, put it in the chat box. We will discuss it afterwards, and feel free to ask questions. A lot of people may have the same questions, but may feel too shy to say it. So please feel free to share it. This is how we learn. And our session is going to start with stress, and then we're going to tip over into EQ. And I'm going to touch on the most important things. And I'm also not going to do the textbook going through it. I want to give you a few tips that is down to the point that you can do immediately today and practice it. All right. Fantastic. More and more people are logging in, and I love the new faces that I'm seeing. I'm loving this. Let me just see if there was something in the chat box. All right. Okay, there's sound now. Okay, can everyone hear me? I also see, Charlene, I can't put something in the chat box. It says chat is only available during the meeting. Okay, so someone else said they can hear me, but I do see I can't put, but other people can put something in the chat box. That's also all right. Okay.
Celia, you should be able to pop in the chat box. It is available during the webinar. And yes, we can hear you.
Let me do that. All right. Let me share my presentation. So half an hour, thank you, Charlene. Half an hour, we will start with do stress management, and then we're going to do the EQ. So stick around because it's going to get very interesting. Right, so let's just open up the stress. Here we go. All right. And Charlene, you can just tell me if you can't see anything. Okay, I can't see my own share. Let me just do it again. So I'm going to share the screen. What will happen if I do that? Right, there we go. Okay, it's worked. No, but this is the wrong one. Let me just share the correct one. Okay, so I'm going to have to go back to window and choose the stress one. No stress at this point. Let me just do that. Let me just do that. Right. Okay, and we're ready to get going. So let me switch on the slideshow. So I may not be able to see if you write something in the chat box or if you put your hand up now. I may need to wait until we finish, but please write something in the chat box. We'll deal with it as we go along. Right, so let's start with the stress this morning. So most of you know me by now. I'm Celia Denton. I'm an industrial psychologist. I'm the owner of PTES Consulting. What we do is psychometric assessments. And because I see so many results on a daily basis, I can actually see how stressed people are. And I can also see the importance of the role that emotional intelligence plays in our lives. And thank you for the HR Talk for always arranging these webinars. They do a great job. So I'm going to touch on a few things, and I'm going to do so quickly because I don't want to be stuck on the boring stuff. So if we just do a quick recap on what it is that we've done before. Stress is the body's reaction to any change or where there is an adjustment needed. Charlene, you can also tell me if it looks like my pages get stuck. If it looks like it, you can just give me a shout. All right, so the body reacts to these changes with a physical, a mental, and emotional response. You need to remember that stress is a normal part of life. It's never going to leave you, and you also shouldn't want it to go out because stress is also the thing that keeps you on your toes. Stress is the things that happens to you that makes you learn. It takes you around the block more than once, and this is how you build your resilience as well. Let's quickly touch on the symptoms. There are emotional symptoms, there are physical symptoms, there's cognitive symptoms, there's behavioral symptoms. It doesn't matter what goes where. Just know that you could have a combination of things. Maybe one of your most prominent things are a headache or the tenseness in the muscles here in the neck. Or can I just share with you that most recently I've had a little bit of stress myself, family related things. And for the last few days, I've been having a metallic taste in my mouth. And I swear it's the taste of cortisol. So I was quite aware of it because of what I'm going through. I have more butterflies in my stomach than usual. Usually I really don't have this. I'm usually pretty good, but the scenario that I'm going through, so it was a little bit elevated. So I'm waiting for this also to just pass. So there's two things that they teach you when you follow some of the Buddhist principles is a lot of things will pass and a lot of things you need to accept because it's going to remain the same. For example, your mother-in-law or your own mother or whoever it is, those things are going to stay. It's going to remain. You have to accept it. If you accept certain things, that's just how it is. But for the most part, most things in our lives blow over. You could have a heightened situation with someone. I know the thing that I'm going through right now, it's going to blow over. You can, however, while you are in a situation, do the best you can to deal with it. Do not be passive and not do something about it. Do what is in your power, but do not elevate it and make it the most important thing in your life. We are going to go back to that right at the end of the session because I want to give you a handful of tips of things that you can do right now. So I want to jump to the difference between stress, worry, and anxiety. But firstly, so Charlene, just so that you also know, I'm now on the page where it says, how does worrying affect you? So you need to know that there's a difference between stress, worry, and anxiety. One of the biggest things that we suffer from is worry. Let me first actually give you the definition of the difference between stress, worry, and anxiety. So stress is a thing that is happening. It is a reality. It is a subjective incident. For example, it is an exam, it's traffic, it's boyfriend, girlfriend problems, it's poverty, it's unfairness at work, it can be anything. It's a real thing that is happening. We do not have control over these things. The second thing, however, which is worry, is the thing we have a little bit more control over. Worry, it comes from the stressful event, but worry hasn't happened yet. We take the stress and we take it 10 steps further. Now, worry is inevitable. You are going to worry because you're a responsible person. You think about things and you want to control the consequences. But make sure that you keep an eye on where on the continuum of worry you are. So even if your worry shoots up a little bit, keep an eye on it and try to control it and bring it back to neutral. Because here you've got your stress already. That's doing enough already. Keep an eye on your tendency to worry. So when we test people, we test these things separately from each other. So often people, that you can see there's stressful things happen, but we can also see how do they deal with that stressful thing by the tendency to worry. Now, to worry is going to happen, but it's like that old saying, you must have seen it on Facebook. When they say the troubles walk in the front door, and you should just gently ease it out the back door. But what we do is we sit it down and we serve it cookies and tea. We dwell on it. Keep an eye on how you handle that. So if you have a particular worry, what you can do to deal with that worry is, firstly, there was a study done by a psychology professor with university students. They call it the suppressing of white bears. So very simple. What they did, they told two groups of students to press a button whenever they thought of white bears. The other group was told, try not to think of white bears, but when you think of it, press the button. So the people that were trying not to think of white bears press the button more often than the people who was actively thinking of the white bears. What that tells us is when you say to yourself, I don't want to think about something, when you're trying to suppress it, it comes up more often than a person that's just sitting with their worry or sitting with their stress. So the more you're trying to suppress it, the worse it's getting. So what are we going to do about this? You can replace that worry with something else. Don't suppress the worry. If something is bothering you right now, don't suppress it. Don't say, I don't want to think about it. Replace it with something else, something that's neutral, something that's similar in nature, so just something else. Because you can do the mind shift change. The brain can do the mind shift, because what the brain does, the brain is incredibly intricate and is also fantastic in trying to protect you. You need to understand how the brain works in order for you to get the best use out of your brain. So what you want to do is replace the worry thought with something else, because what the brain is doing is reminding you of, please do not think about that worry. So the brain is so fantastic, but in this case, it's sort of working against you. So what you want to do, if you've got a worry, replace that worry thought with something else. Do not try and suppress it, because it will come out more often. All right, so I hope you understand that part. Then there's another little thing that I want to tell you about positive programming of the mind. So if you are very worried, you are very anxious, and you tell yourself, I want to replace my thoughts with a pleasant thought. And I want to tell myself, I am calm, I am in control, I am prepared, I sleep well, I am relaxed. The nice thing about your complex brain is you do not have to believe yourself. When you say that positive affirmation, the biochemical process in the brain takes place automatically. You don't have to force it. You don't have to try and convince yourself. All you need to do when the worry pops up, it sounds like it's so easy for me to say this. I still struggle with it myself, because you want to be disciplined and you want to have coping mechanisms in place to help support this, because it is easier said than done, but you can practice it and you can get better at it. So if you start repeating the positive things to yourself, the brain will start adjusting to it, because the brain doesn't have to believe you. So if you tell your brain, I'm useless, I'm worried, I'm stressed, it's going to believe you. If you tell your brain, I'm calm, I'm relaxed, it will just go with it. It is just going to accept it. But our logical brain wants to tell us, yeah, but I can feel I'm stressed. This is not working. This positive affirmation is not working. It doesn't matter. You need to trust the process. You need to say to yourself, I'm calm, I'm relaxed. So what I did now the last few days, while I had the metallic taste in my mouth from all the cortisol, I actually tapped into my meditation practices a little bit more, and I did teach myself how to meditate. Not all of us have got the time. Not all of us like that particular practice. Maybe some of you like to go for a run or a walk or do something different. But if you can practice breathing exercises and keep at it, you can actually introduce a little bit more of a calm. As a matter of fact, I was sleeping pretty well in the last few days, believe that or not. Metallic taste in my mouth or not, I was sleeping pretty good. So there's a stressful thing that happens that you can't control. Then there's worry, where you have a sense of control. You just need to practice it. You need to believe in your process. You need to believe in the capability of the brain to protect yourself. Be a step ahead. Know that your brain will deal with it. How many times did your brain get you out of trouble? Then the last component is anxiety. Now, anxiety has got two things to it. Firstly, anxiety will happen when there's persistent excessive worry. It's inevitable. I mean, how is it not going? So you will tip into anxiety. That's probably where the metallic taste comes from. Because it's now causing anxiety. The body is now secreting stuff. It's like trying to help you to cope in severe fight or flight mode. But interestingly enough, You could have anxiety without having any stressors. So that tells us that even if nothing is happening, what you are telling yourself can actually work yourself up into a frenzy. That is very, very important. You need to take the things around you that's happening. Is it really that bad? Am I blowing it out of proportion? You need to know, this is another bit of useless information for you this morning. We are 25 million light years travel away from the closest star. Can you see how insignificant we are? And we like a fart in the wind. The stuff that's bothering you today is going to blow away tomorrow. It's nothing. It is not that important. But let me just track back there a little bit. I don't want to minimize your problems and your concerns because things get real on this planet. I mean, we've got illnesses, we've got money problems. We have family, we've got friends, we've got job problems. Those things are real. But make sure that you handle it optimally. Make sure that you do whatever you can to handle it, to deal with it. And mental health is a big thing. And with social media and that, mental health has actually come to the forefront. I think in the past, without social media and open communications, people were just, I don't know what we did. You just bottled it up, kept it in. I don't know, but it's very good to be aware of this, but also be aware of not labeling yourself too quickly, labeling yourself with anxiety and I'm doing this. And don't give yourself a name too quickly. All of us are screwed in some way. All of us are dysfunctional in some way, but we are contributing citizens of society. We make our contribution. We're living. We're participating. You're doing a good job. You've got a job. You've got a family. You're doing a good job. You're functioning. You're driving through traffic. You're stopping at a traffic light. You know what you're doing. You're actually doing okay. Just acknowledge that as well. Acknowledge the things that's working well. And I wanted to just show you, just talk about quick tips, quick things that you can do right now today is, if you feel elevated stress levels during the day or whenever, stop and start doing one thing at a time. Do one thing at a time. That multitasking thing, that's great if you're full of energy, and it's great if you're moving at a fast pace, that's great. But stop and do one thing at a time. Be very much aware of your thoughts, because it's the thoughts that gets us into trouble. So I just wanted to quickly jump to another page. This page is very important. Can you see the yellow block with a red line in it? Now, this is the stress process in every single person. It's in me, it's in you. This is how it happens. Now, stress doesn't just pop up, or it's not just there. There's a situation that triggers it, and that's the situation is traffic, it's my internal thinking. It can be boyfriend problems, it can be job problems, it can be anything. There's a trigger, and then we feel an emotion. But before we get to the emotion, there is a thinking about that situation. Often this process, and this is why I highlighted in red there, this happens so incredibly majestically quickly that we just think we are just irritated, frustrated, completely drained and tired. There was a process before you got to that point. You need to trace it back. You need to go back to what was my situation, and you will have many situations during the day. That can be the tone of someone's voice. It can be a tone in an email. It can be anything. So don't try and suppress it and make like it's not important. It is, and acknowledge that and say, okay, that did happen. That person did have an attitude with me. You can't do anything about that. You cannot ever just zoom in a little bit more about your thinking about that situation. Yes, it was not great. Yes, it was not. You can also apply your empathy and put yourself in other people's shoes. You also don't have to over-empathize. Sometimes the over-empathy is also not healthy. Just think about it, but think about how are you thinking about that situation, because that is what brings the emotion. Whether that's anger, frustration, happiness, sadness, whatever it is, it comes from somewhere. Now, you can't really control even the emotion, but you can control how you think about this whole process. And then it ends up in a behavior. So if you're in traffic, you may start driving erratically, or what we love to do, I'm stuck in traffic, let me pick up my phone and let me do something else while I'm busy with it. Do one thing at a time. Do one thing at a time. Remember that whenever we do things during the day, energy goes out, it goes out, it goes out. When you're on your phone, the energy goes out. When I'm watching TV, the energy goes out. I'm not shooting it down. I also love to just veg in front of the TV sometimes. But remember, the energy goes out. When I speak to someone, the energy goes out. Meditation or exercise or half an hour alone with you, with just you in a day, brings the energy back a little bit. Your sleep brings the energy back a little bit. So try to make sure that you do exercises in a day that brings the energy back to you. So scrolling on Facebook, answering your emails, that's the energy going out. Nothing wrong with it, but limit it as well. Let me quickly go through another tip before I run out of time. You know, when you do stress management courses, everyone tells you to exercise and eat well, né? And how irritating is that? We know we need to exercise, we know we need to eat, but why? And it's, you know, why are they telling us that? There's a very good reason behind it, because eating alone can cause inflammation in the body. So you want to make sure you eat foods, whole foods, that does not cause inflammation in the body. Unfortunately, that inflammatory process can be, it can be so subtle, you don't know the level of inflammation that's in your body. Remember now that together with high cortisol doubles up the inflammation. So be aware of what you eat so that your lymph system and your immune system has some support. Remember what I told everyone the other day, the reason why you want to exercise is because the lymph system is not a pump. It does not pump here where you're sitting and freeing your body of toxins and everything that you put in because of your eating and the too much caffeine and coffee and stuff. It doesn't do that. The lymph only starts working when you move. So that's why you want to do a little bit of walking or exercise on a daily basis. Don't exercise for weight loss and stuff like that. I say walk for cortisol. That's what you do. When you get to this age, you walk for cortisol. You walk to get release of the tension in your body, the tension that's in your muscles. And you need to spend at least half an hour or an hour a day just with you, with your own head, without a phone, without talking, without anything, walking or running or do any form of exercise so that your lymph can get going, so that you can just be with yourself and taking something in. So the last note that I wanted to make on the stress is you need to do something different from this day on forward from what you did yesterday. You have to make a change. And what is your change going to be? So you can't say, oh, but I attended the workshop. You know, that's not stress management. You need to look at what are you going to do differently tomorrow from what you did yesterday. So, and whether that is spending some time alone with yourself on a yoga mat where it's just you and that 30 minutes, or if you're going to walk outside around a few blocks, whatever, but it's only you in your own head breathing in the fresh air around you or the city air, it doesn't matter, but you want to get your arms swinging, your legs moving, get a little bit of air in your lungs to release a little bit of the tension. Exercise is also the only other thing that gets the stress hormone out of the blood. It's the stress, the building up of the stress hormones that causes immediate illnesses like flus and fever blisters, things like that. But on the long run, that is where your heart attacks and things come from. So build towards it on a daily basis. Get your lymph going. Help the thing. It's just flipping pumping. Well, it's not pumping. It's trying to freaking pump to help you that is never moving. So just also between meetings, when you've sat for an hour or so, get up, do swing your arms, do some stretches, get just moving a little bit, and you'll feel that the muscles relax a little bit. So, okay, so before I go on to the EQ, I want to quickly jump. I'm going to close my presentation. I'm going to go to the chat box, and I want to just see if anyone has asked any questions around the stress part. I hope I didn't go too quickly. And please, Bob, I'm going to give you just a minute or two to write down anything in the chat box around stress. And while I'm waiting for you, I want to run through this again. You need to do something different from tomorrow than you're doing today. If you don't make a form of a change, it won't get better. So let's look at things you can do. When you drive home or to work, put the cell phone away. It's just you focusing on one thing, and that is driving, listening to music and actually enjoying the ride. Spend maybe half an hour or an hour a day just with you on a yoga mat, or walking around a block, or doing breathing exercises, or listening to nice music, or just sitting with you and your coffee. Also, just limit the caffeine. There's a good question in the chat box. Limit the caffeine, because caffeine stimulates the central nervous system, and it gets you opgeklits. You think you've got a lot of energy, but you're actually just highly stimulated. I still love the coffee. Everyone here that knows me knows that I'm not going to tell you to cut back on the coffee, although I'm going to tell you just limit caffeine drinks. Just limit it, have a lot of water in between it to buffer the effects of the caffeine. I only do two caffeine coffees a day, and I can feel it works me up. I can feel it. I can feel I'm more short and I'm more edgy. So also do that, and then be aware of your thoughts. And now you know why you need to eat well, and you know why you need to exercise. Control the inflammation here, and just by eating whole foods, whole stuff, and not stuff from packets, bottles, and whatever. I mean, it's obvious that it's not normal. Whole stuff. And then secondly, you want to exercise because you want to get your lymph moving to help you get rid of stuff in your body. Okay, let's just deal with the questions quickly. How do I tell my boss I can only do one thing at a time? You don't tell him or her. You do one thing at a time. You write down, you do a proper planner. And in every single morning, you want to do a proper planner, analyze what you need to do a proper planning. You may need to reprioritize as you go, like especially if the pressure is hectic during the day, you may need to shift things to the top of the list, which is now not secondary anymore, it's now first priority. So you plan, you focus, and some of your best decisions is made in a relaxed state. You know how you get when you're under pressure and you're trying to do it. Take it down, go back to neutral, reprioritize. I often say to people, pause. There is power in the pause. Pause and gather your thoughts. Okay, then can anxiety be a sickness that needs one to take medication? As you mentioned, that it can come without worry and stress. A lot of people are not going to like what I say. I personally don't believe so. Anxiety can be a sickness if it's a diagnosed thing because of severe trauma. For example, my mother has a severe anxiety disorder because of severe abuse, severe trauma that's happened there. So believe it or not, I still don't think we need to label us too quickly, because I think there's a massive amount of power that you've got to control this and deal with this. There is, however, if I look at people like my mother, she's been on medication. That is a total different ball game. But I said to myself, I can see what's going on there, and I want to see what it is that I can do to control mine. I think I probably brought my anxiety down from like 80-90% per day to probably about 5% a day. But I am disciplined with practicing meditation, breathing exercises, exercise. And I don't exercise like a crazy person. I'm not a bodybuilder, that type of thing. I have religious things that I do, not religious things, I do things religiously in order to combat it. And I work at it. There's so much information available on the internet. Don't just sit. I'm not trying to say that it's not a sickness with you or it's not a illness. Some people actually literally do need medication, but don't just label yourself too quickly or too easily. And a lot of power is in your head and in your mind that you can learn to manage. But also, speak to professionals. I don't know your background or the personal situation. Like with my mother, no amount of positive thinking is going to work there. But I decided I want things different for me, and I addressed it differently. So, and I can tell you, even with my two brothers, there's anxiety there, but they deal with it differently. But it depends on what has happened in your life. It really depends. So don't just take what I say and run with it and ditch the pills. You may need it because of your unique situation, but then also get advice from a proper psychiatrist, not just the neighbor or a house doctor. Not that they don't know what they're talking about, but then if I'm going to take something, it has to come from a person that specializes in it. Then, what if things beyond your control? What if it's things beyond your control where there's nothing you can do about it, but the stressor won't go away? Also, how do I stop living in survival mode? So, you want to acknowledge what is the stressor that you don't have control over. Then you want to identify the worry part that you have a little bit more control over. And I'm saying a little bit more control over because I know it's difficult to not worry about it. It's difficult not to think about it, but get things in place to help you to cope with it. You can't get rid of it. You can't magically make it disappear, but you can say, okay, what am I going to do? So what I, for example, did, I explored the Art of Living. That is an organization that teaches you how to meditate. They teach you how to do breathing exercises. Even what I would do during the day, I would do some of the breathing exercises. Literally, I will continue with it until I can feel there's a difference in how my head is feeling. So you need to do something. You need to say, this is my stress, that ain't going away, but what am I doing over here? And do things religiously to say, I have done X and I'm doing it continuously. Don't say, yeah, but I tried the deep breathing, it's not helping, or I walked around the block, but it's not helping. That is a process that's ongoing that you are going to keep at. And also you want to learn to become emotionally aware. We're going to look at the EQ just now. You want to become emotionally aware around your thinking, and you want to learn to express your needs. You want to learn to listen to other people's needs. So there's actual things that you can do to address some of the stressors. And remember, in the Buddhist principles, they will tell you some things are there to stay, some things will blow over, like COVID did. So this person that asked you, what if it's things beyond your control? Go write down what is beyond your control, but then go write down and research, Google, what can I do to control my stresses during the day, and say, I'm doing this on a daily basis. So for example, I know that I meditate every morning before I start work, and sometimes I'm lazy and I skip it. That's on me. I decided to skip it and I decided to have the coffee. So that's, the coffee is making me more edgy, and you can hear I'm talking very fast because of all the caffeine. Anyway, how do you know if you've gone beyond just stress? The fact that you're asking this question tells me you've gone beyond this just stress. There will be symptoms. And look at the symptoms. That would be irritation, frustration. It will lie in a behavior. How you deal with people. Are you short? Are you edgy? Are you kicking the dog? Are you driving erratically? Are you trying to do a million things at once instead of just trying to do one thing? Then work it back and look at the triggers. There'll be more than one trigger. We all have more than one trigger a day. There's millions of emails and phone calls in a day. So work it back like that. Then be more aware of my thoughts and start walking when I arrive home. Yes, there you go. Look how you're just learning. That's fantastic. How will you know when you are experiencing burnout at work? The mere fact that you're asking the question tells me you're on that verge already. That means you need to go write down, what are my stressors? And I know some of them won't go away. Work pressures are not going to disappear. Now, am I doing the relaxation things that I said I need to do? And am I doing it religiously? So over this weekend, whenever I started thinking about this thing that was bothering me, I'd literally go back to breathing, and I would just breathe deeply, and I would actually do more meditation. There's so many, you just Google it, meditation exercises on YouTube, many of that guided meditations. What if I get a tense and painful feeling in my left shoulder whenever stress levels are higher? My doctor prescribed a muscle relaxant, but I don't want to be on medication all the time. So it just means that your body is physically feeling the stress. And a muscle relaxant will help, but that is just dealing with the symptoms. So exercise is really good for that. So religiously do it. So what you can do immediately right now, every hour, get up from your desk, swing your arms, move your body, do stretches, look at a few yoga stretches, Google it online. How can I relax my muscles in between every meeting? Do it 5 times a day, 10 times a day, and then you go for your walk where you inhale nice and deeply. Even if you just do that, this will help with a muscle problem. What if it's your parents that's causing your stress, like black tax, and you have spoken to them about it, but it's not getting better? What is black tax? Because what if it's your parents that causes your stresses, black tax, and you have spoken to them about it and it's not getting? So you can communicate, but you can also not. So make sure that the communication is clear. You communicate your needs. And so do what it is what it is that you can communicate that, but then you also want to do it. What is it that you practically can do? But make sure that you also hear what it is that they're saying. What is their need? And what is your need? Really flesh it out. Make sure that you hear the needs from all the angles. And then, sorry, please repeat and elaborate on how to tell your boss. So you're not going to tell your boss. You're not going to tell your boss. You're going to do your proper planning. And you're going to deal with it the way that your competencies is in your how is your personality and how is your cognitive ability. And then what causes my body temperature to change? It heats up when I start thinking about certain things. Yeah, it's a body's reaction to the stress. So once again, get your stress relieving practices in place. You actually need everyone here that is writing these things here, that's saying this, needs to get a few things that you need to do during the day, a few things, and you need to start practicing it religiously. You need to start your day in a relaxed manner. Don't just start with a coffee. Start with relaxation, things like with water and mineral salt first. First, wake up. First, do some stretches, exercise or meditation. Then get going. And then have relaxation things that you do in between meetings, and spend time with yourself after work by walking or running. So even here, so that's especially important for the person that says here the body temperature change. Your body is telling you, I've had enough. It's telling you. So get rid of the stress hormone through exercise, stretching. How do you stop crying when you're highly stressed out in a situation? Don't stop crying. Cry until it's out. Then deal with your situation. Look at it rationally as well. Get input from people as well in terms of how do I look at this rationally. But you also want to have a limit in terms of how long you talk to people about your issue that's happening. You don't want to repeat and just repeat that stress that you have by talking about it constantly. And then How do I stop heart palpitations and sharp pains in my chest? And I want to answer this all in one. Does constant pressure and burnout aggregate anxiety? Yes. So I so well know that I have to do all of this, but in reality, your boss, your staff members, your house, your children, your finances, your health, and friends and family don't know where to take a place in line. Everything happens all at once. Yes. And in spite of this, we all keep up showing our, in spite of this, we all keep on showing up and putting in the effort. Yes, so you want to stop and you want to prioritize. Okay, so before we run out of time, I quickly want to do the EQ. Then I'm going to come back to some of these questions. So please stick around. Don't go away. I just want to reiterate the emotional awareness and how important that is in your in managing your stress. Let me just see if I got the right one here. Right, you can all see the emotional intelligence part. Okay, so let's have a total new, fresh look at this. What does emotional intelligence mean? Right, let's just quickly look at the story of Lisa Nowak. I don't know if many of you know about her. This is a prime example of how poor emotional intelligence and emotional awareness can actually derail your competence and your relationships with others. So for those of you who do not know Lisa Nowak, she was an astronaut with NASA. She went through a massive recruitment process and a rigorous and challenging selection procedures to be chosen. So this is a photo of her on the right. So out of thousands of applicants, about only half a dozen is selected each decade. So in order to be able to apply, you need extensive experience and knowledge in science and engineering. So not only do you need to be physically strong, you need to be a pilot with about 1,000 hours experience. She was also a fighter pilot with about 1,000 hours. She had a master's degree in aeronautical engineering. I don't even know what that is, and had studied postgraduate astrophysics at the U.S. Naval Academy. She flew air missions for the U.S. Navy in the Pacific for over 5 years. This woman is amazing. So for any of you that don't know about her, you can actually Google her, and there's even a YouTube clip that actually shows the whole scenario that I'm going to explain to you now that's happening. So this is her mugshot in the middle here. On her left is her boyfriend. On the right is this boyfriend's new girlfriend. So this was very, very long ago. This is years ago. This is more than 20 years ago already. So Lisa Nowak was at this point already married. She had 2 boys at home, 2 small boys. So all of this while she had this brilliant career. I mean, can you just imagine the career and the life these people were having? And the boyfriend, it seems to me like it was a fairly short affair, and maybe that was a mistake on his part by engaging in this. When he met up with a new girlfriend, what I can tell you, apparently they are still together today. So, you know, maybe it was a judgment error at that point. I also don't want to throw these people under the bus. I think they got wrapped up in everything that was going on. But after Lisa realized that her boyfriend got a new girlfriend, she drove 15 hours from, it was from Houston to Orlando, because she knew that this woman was at the airport landing or whatever. But so she went there to confront this new girlfriend. What they found in her car, in the parking lot, in the car, was zip-ties, pepper spray, large garbage bags. So it doesn't create a great picture when you look at it like this. So this could have been really bad. But in the parking lot there, she actually had a mental breakdown. She cried and nothing happened. Nothing came of it. But you can see that if that penny didn't drop, this woman would have been in very, very big trouble. So what happened after all of this? You can actually YouTube it. There's a video where she confronts her. It's not really that that dramatic, you can just see that the girlfriend is trying to get away. So what they, at the end of the day, did, she was charged with attempted murder, but it was reduced to burglary. And why they said burglary is because she did break into the boyfriend's house and saw all the stuff on his computer. So it got really tense with this person, like really crazy how she was wrapped up in the emotions that it doesn't look like she understood. Because if you look at the cognitive capacity of this woman and you look at the emotional chaos, you can see there's an emotional intelligence thing here that's just not great. So let's just quickly look at what is emotional intelligence. So someone said to me the other day, they said, does emotional intelligence mean it means overly friendly? No, it does not. It doesn't mean that you are submissive. It doesn't mean that you are highly accommodating. It doesn't mean you are friendly. It doesn't mean any of that. It means you are just aware and in tune with your emotions. So there is a subjective experience that this is an emotion, a subjective experience. There's a physiological response. Then there's a behavioral response. Can you see how closely this speaks to the stress? If you are emotionally aware of things, you can actually deal with your stress. Can you see that? You want to start becoming aware. What are the incidences around me? Trace it back and go back and say, what is happening around me that's causing me to be frustrated or irritated? So the fact that I'm talking a little bit faster now and making some pronouncing errors is because I had a lot of caffeine. I know that, so I can see that. So there's an objective experience, physiological response, and then a behavioral expressive response to deal with it. So the subjective experience could be stuck in traffic. It can be any of these things that all of you have listed here, né? And that could be feeling panicked, stressed, anxious. It can be feeling happy. Don't just think it's a negative thing. Don't just tune in when it's negative. Become aware of when you are relaxed. When are you happy? What is making you feel elated? For example, when you do your stress relief exercise, how do I feel after a brisk walk? After doing a few breathing exercises, having coffee versus not having coffee. So don't just zoom in when it goes bad, because this is what all of us are doing. The questions they said, how do I know I've got burnout? How do I know it? Don't just zoom in on when the pawpaw hits the fan. Also zoom in on the other side, because then you will have a behavioral expressive response. Now I'm driving erratic, faster, pushing in front of others. So EQ, emotional intelligence, is the ability to perceive, control, and evaluate emotions. You can get better at it. I don't believe it's just inborn and now this is just how it is. I don't believe it. I believe it is something that can be learned and can get strengthened. So your IQ forms and crystallizes at the age around 25, then your brain only stops growing. EQ has got way more leeway until you're in your 30s, or deeper in your 30s. Even if you're older than that, still work on it, be aware. You're still thinking, you're still dressing yourself every morning, you've got a brain, use it. Then the ability to express and control emotions is essential, but also the ability to understand, interpret, and respond to the emotions of others. Remember, it's not just about yourself, but see the situation. How are you responding? Keep in mind how others are responding and everything in between that. So someone asked me about the boss. How do I tell my boss? Also keep in mind the pressure that's on the boss. The boss may have a particular style or be erratic, short, or whatever, but also put yourself in their shoes. Do you understand what it is that they need from you? Maybe the person is unreasonable, but maybe they've got pressure on them. So also to just be aware. Don't make excuses for everything and ever. We don't want to make excuses for Lisa Nowak, né? But let's try and understand her and see where does she come from. So if you look at EQ, what emotions did Lisa experience? So if I had to think about now, she's always been the winner. She's a number one. This guy has now rejected her. I think she did literally not even, I think she couldn't comprehend the feelings that she was in love, obviously, with this guy. There was feelings of rejection. It was probably very confusing. Was Lisa able to constructively express her emotions? I would give that a big fat no, because, but also in her defense, maybe she did speak to the boyfriend. Maybe the boyfriend did say, I don't want to do this anymore. Maybe he did. He doesn't look like an unassertive person, but maybe she just didn't know how to deal with that no or the rejection. Then lastly, did she understand the emotions and the feelings of other parties involved? I can tell you she was definitely ignoring her husband and the children. She wasn't even thinking about them. If the boyfriend did communicate to her, which I would assume he probably did, she also ignored him and what it is that he was saying. He said, I don't want to do this anymore. I would assume that he did, because I mean, he does look like a quite confident. He's like an astronaut. He does look quite competent and assertive. So, but whatever the situation may be, let's just quickly, before we get to questions, what EQ is not. It's not agreeableness or highly accommodatingness. It can mean you can have a good, solid, firm boundary. Then it's not necessarily optimism. It's not necessarily happiness or calmness or dropping your own standards to adjust to other people. It's not giving into excuses. It's not letting people get away with things. It's not hugging and consoling. Low EQ is being argumentative, not listening, blaming others, emotional outbursts, always having to be right, oblivious to others' feelings. So listen to what it is that your parents or your boss or your co-workers are saying. What is it that they need? Don't just think of your own needs, but you also want to acknowledge your own needs. You want to actually become aware of everything. Don't be oblivious to others' feelings. It is poor coping skills. Turn conversations to themselves or struggle with relationships. I want to end with talking about what does high EQ look like. So high EQ individuals control their interactions with toxic people or just with other people by keeping their feelings in check. One big, huge tip I can give you: before responding, back away, pause, and think about it first. You are way better when you've stepped away and you've thought about it, then respond. You are way better in a calm state to make a good decision and make a good judgment. When they need to confront a toxic person, they approach the situation rationally. Don't just go in a situation and think, I am going to obliterate this person. I'm going to answer on every part of this email and answer it step by step. First, back away and just think about what it is that you're going to do first. Then they identify their own feelings and emotions. They don't allow anger and frustration to fuel the chaos. Then they have a robust emotional vocabulary. They are curious. Someone said to me the other day, it was a very selfish person. I know this person for a very, very long time. And the person said, what is narcissism? So know these terms, know what it means, engage in the wording. What does it mean? What does it mean when someone tells you I'm frustrated or irritated or whatever? Engage. They're curious about people. Know your own strengths and weaknesses. Know what pushes your buttons. They're usually a good judge of character. If you made a mistake in an interview and you misjudge someone, don't hold it against yourself, using it as a learning curve, because often we may get it wrong. So what? Difficult to offend. Let go of mistakes. Don't hold grudges. Listen, you can have some of these grudging or feeling anger for a while. You just don't want to hold on to it for a week. You are allowed to feel angry or resentful or whatever. Just don't hold on to it for a week or a year. Neutralize toxic people. Don't seek perfection. Disconnect. And disconnect means disconnect from your phone, disconnect from social media, disconnect from your emails, disconnect to just be with yourself for a few minutes per day. Limit the caffeine intake, because that gives you a fake feeling of a high level of energy. It actually just stimulates your central nervous system. Get enough sleep. That's the only time you repair. That is very important. Stop negative self-talk in its tracks and won't let anyone limit their joy. Okay, I want to know if there was any questions around EQ. My goal for today was I wanted to make sure that you can connect your stress to the emotional awareness and the emotional intelligence and how it actually links together. So I want to go through the questions. I just want to continue here, and please ask me more questions around the EQ. So it says here, what if you feel like you cannot ask for help from people, even your spouse? Is this a PTSD symptom from being disappointed and people leaving you in the past? How do I communicate my feelings or stressors better to have more support? Okay, so it is very healthy and it is good to be able to communicate. If you are communicating, if you are not communicating and you don't know why, you want to explore, why am I not speaking up? Because it can be from the past where you were told to keep quiet, we don't want to hear from you. So yes, it can be from that. So you want to break free from that, not being outspoken. And yes, it can be from being disappointed. You may think about, if I'm going to speak, it's going to land on deaf ears. That could have been like that in the past. It doesn't mean that it's like that now. And how you communicate is, I actually read about this the other day. You can test someone else's emotional intelligence by telling them, you have hurt me or you have disappointed me. Look at what the response is from that, and look and see if that person will spend the time in a few minutes to explore what has happened there. Make sure that you create a place that's not attacking, but that is a place where you can express how it is that if you're in a relationship where the person literally, you can't even open your mouth and they blow you off, then that's obviously that's not going to work. But you want to address something with someone without blaming. So choose your words and your sentences very carefully and in a neutral way. Thank you for the response on burnout. Yeah, keep an eye on yourself and get your coping mechanisms in place and follow them in a disciplined way. And just watching TV is not going to, you do feel relief in the moment, but it's not a deep relaxation. When you're feeling extremely drained, bothered, fatigued, and just want to play ignorance or mute to my situation, what would you recommend? I don't feel like talking about it because I'm exhausted. Then don't talk about it. Get your energy back first, because this could be your coping style. So everyone has got derailing behaviors. It means that in a situation of stress, you may either become volatile and scream, or you may become totally retracted and quiet. So be aware of your own style. But when you've gotten your energy back, it is then a good thing to talk, because you want to express to others where you are at, because then people can understand you. You can also say, I'm not ready to talk right now. I need a break. You can do that and then go back to the situation when you feel you've got the energy. Then what can I do if I have severe headache before I go to sleep? I would, for this, I know there's a lot of people that don't like the meditation stuff and the breathing stuff, but this is really, it causes oxygen to go to the brain. So, and it really calms down the central nervous system, and scientific studies have shown that meditation and breathing exercises actually lowers the acidity in the body. So you want to get some practices, maybe definitely get rid of screen time, chamomile teas, things like that. Meditation, breathing exercises. What would be great is some form of exercise so that you can get the tension out of the body. But you want to do a combination of things. Don't just do one thing. Don't just do one thing. Then, so in essence, don't tell your boss, plan, prioritize, and handle it as best you can without stressing yourself out. Someone else's important is not necessarily your important. Would this be correct? Also, exercise, be active daily. Yes. Someone else's lack of planning is not your problem. Remember, everyone is bombarded with chaos during the day. It is everyone's task then to put it into a plan and how you're going to execute it systematically. Don't shoot from the hip and just do this, that. Don't just tick off boxes in your diary. Have a plan that prioritizes the most important and then the secondary important. What must be done today, what tomorrow, what on Friday. But do a plan like that and give it a time slot and be very flexible in your planning. If your planning is rigid, it creates more stress. As a matter of fact, all of these people that made comments here, if I was you, every single hour I'd get up and I'll do stretches, 5-minute stretches. At the coffee while the kettle is boiling, stretch, do some things. Google what you can do, what is really good. Then my left eye is constantly twitching. Would you say it's a sign of fatigue or stress? That can be a mineral or a vitamin deficiency. And I'm only saying that because I found that with myself and doing a lot of reading. So make sure that there's a lot of nutritional eating, that there's maybe some form of supplement, but try and get your supplements more from the food that you're eating. Caffeine can also do that, but your vitamin Ds can do that. And also get into the sun, get into the actual sun for vitamin D. May you share your slides after the session. Please speak to the HR Talk. They will send you the recording. Please elaborate on the aspect of neutralizing toxic people. I've learned to not refer to toxic people anymore, because when we say certain words and allocate terms to people, like we define anxieties and stuff, we make it a thing in our life. Don't just label someone as being toxic. It's also just a person that is trying to scramble through this life and hoping for the best. You will encounter easy people, difficult people, stressed out people. So try and also approach them from, they are also just like you, trying to spit something out at the end of the day in order to get a paycheck, in order to pay my stuff, in order to get up the next day. So also see it like that. Don't label people too harshly, and also don't see motivation or intention behind other people's mistakes. Also, you don't have to be naive and just believe what people are telling you, but also don't allocate intention if someone made a mistake or whatever. But just be aware. Don't let people just pull the wool over your eyes, but also don't just always see the negative in someone or think that they're intentionally trying to derail you. And then, how do I communicate my stresses, work-related, and levels of burnout that I'm experiencing with my employer without being victimized? Communicate in a very professional manner. But what you can do is say, this is what I'm supposed to do. This is my plan. I'm going to do this. You can check in if you want to. Another very good thing with a boss is also to keep them updated with what you are doing, but show them that you are proactive. Don't go to them with every single problem. Say, I try to sort this out, or this is going to be my approach to the problem. This is how I'm trying to sort it out. So show that energy, and so that they can see where you are, and that transparency will also help them. And then, how do employers deal with members who make consistent claims of mental health with no evidence of diagnosis, and employers pick it up, might become a pattern as they do not seek medical help? What do employers need to do for employees when it comes to mental well-being as per the Labour Act? Yeah, I do see that increasing as well. Are there resources for free for employers to use to assist employees with mental health? So what I would do is, if I can see people are bringing up the mental health thing a lot, I would actually say, okay, this is my cue that things are going on in the organization, and I won't ignore it. And And I would deal with it by getting more input from people and saying, okay, but when, where, what, how? How can we assist you? How can we arrange sessions that help you deal with stress? What do you need from me to help you cope with this? And what can we learn from you in terms of this mental health? Because I do see people are more aware of it. I think the younger generations are actually bringing it more to the forefront. And even if some of the older generations may think, yeah, but this is just an excuse, it's weak, it's a weakness, we can learn from it by saying, okay, but let's just see, what does it mean? How can we as a group deal with it and get better with it? How can we get in sync with each other? What is it that you need, what we need from each other to go forward? And the Labour Act, when it comes to that, you do want to support people because that's the right thing to do. But you also want to keep an eye out on when someone is messing with you, keep using it as an excuse, and it's actually affecting performance, because as per Labour Act, you can still tap into the performance. But listen to the cues that you are getting. What is that saying? And let's address it. It will be good for you too. It will be, because people also need to understand, for you as an employer, the pressure that you are under. Explain that, make it full circle, and say, listen, people, this is our profit margins. This ain't looking great. This is why I'm acting like this and why I'm putting more pressure. This is the reality. But let's speak to each other. What do you need from me? What do I, do it like that. Then what is happening when most of the staff in superior positions is using calming meditation to cope? What is happening when most of the staff in superior positions is using calming? Well, I think that's great. I use meditation and breathing exercises. I think if I've got the Art of Living's app on my phone, there's 15 minutes, 20 minutes guided meditations on there. What does 15 minutes take of you to step away from your computer and to go do, if you get into that habit, it's fantastic. You know, it feels when you have regrouped. Tap into it. Your brain tells you when you're tired. Your brain tells you when you are overwhelmed. Step away, get your energy together. You don't have to take a month off. You can take that 15 minutes or 20 minutes and take a break. And someone said it was very informative. So thank you for that. If there's anyone else who wants to tap into this, one can speak about this until kingdom come. So remember, I've prepared this because this is very important for me, coming from a childhood where a mother had a legitimate anxiety problem. And it was not just easy things, but if you look at how the rest of the family actually dealt with it and created excellent coping mechanisms, it means that it can be done. It means that you don't have to follow the same route or just give into it. There's a lot of things that you can do. Learn about the body, learn about the brain, and even though you have to run at a massively fast pace, because this is what we're doing right now. We have to run, but you can get a steady pace. And for all of you on here now, as a matter of fact, on the hour, take 5 minutes and do arm stretches, and you'll see it's all over the internet. They tell you to stretch like this and that. Walk around the block, walk up and down the stairs, get up from your chair, stretch your legs. There's many yoga stretches that you can do. So, and then the next session, you need to know this. The next session that we're going to do in September is about how can you interview using or gauging for EQ and stress in an interviewee that you are interviewing. That is why I did this in preparation for that. So please join us then when we do it again. So I'm over the time again, like usual, but I hope to see all of you next time. Thank you so much for giving me the respect of joining in and listening. We will do way more. If you've got any things that you want us to cover, let me know, or let the HR Talk know, and Charlene will let me know. Charlene and David will let me know if there's any things that people want to see more info on. So well done to you for taking the time to join. Absolutely. So thank you, everyone, and have a great Wednesday. See you again next in the next session, and that's in September. Please, I want to see you then. All right. Thank you, everyone.